started recording, and Michael Yan was saying, you know what, let's grab this because I think it's very important. So, Catherine and I will
So
turn it over to you.
we, yeah, so at Solari.com, my website, we've been publishing an energy collection, and it was really inspired by Michael. Michael and Masako were in the Netherlands for at the beginning of the year, and we spent a lot of time talking about both the sabotage of energy facilities as well as trade bottlenecks. And Michael gave me just extensive briefings on trade bottlenecks. And so we started at Soleria to collect all the different things that are going on around the world, not just the Middle East and the Ukraine, that are sabotaging, controlling energy supplies and the trade routes that they go through. And what we started to see was there was a pattern and a real effort globally for the United States and the Anglo American Alliance to try and control as much of the energy resources as possible. And if they couldn't control them, they'd sabotage them and or put tariffs on them or sanction them, whatever. But a real effort to assert a much more invasive control of the energy supply and trade routes. And so we started to just make a list, and then we've been updating it monthly with the help of Corey Lynn of Corey Diggs. And you can go to Solari and find it on our website. It's called Energy Infrastructure and Trade Bottlenecks. And what it shows you is there is a major global war going on, and Ukraine and Middle East are just a part of it. And part of it is the U.S. is doing a, or the U.S. based energy companies are building a lot of market share, including selling LNG gas into Europe and Asia. So, there's a part of this energy war globally, which is definitely advantaging the United States and its ability to maintain the dollar dominance.
Michael?
Right. I mean, you should see this latest report that Catherine sent out. I mean, it's quite amazing, actually, and all the known and suspected attacks. Some may be accidents, but there's a lot of coincidences. But it's really detailed, and I sent it out to a lot of people, actually. And actually, you know what? I'm going to put that on my Substack. That link, I put it on X today. Catherine's link on Solari.com. This is a global war, and the routes and resources, the energy that's being attacked, food supplies that are being attacked. The pharma is, of course, a weapon, and there's so many others that are biological, such as screwworms and other critters and that sort of thing. So it's a huge amount of this is about depopulation. It's not about
Right.
balancing budgets. It's about destroying billions of people in countries around the world and then dissolving a lot of these countries, actually, right? I mean,
Right.
and making them into more just properties. Yeah. Actually, I want to hear Catherine talk. I mean, that's why I went quiet, because you know me,
So,
I usually
one
talk
of
all
the
night.
things that's quite remarkable to me is if you see, for example, I'm in the Netherlands, and if you see what has been done to shut down the farmers here, what's quite amazing to me is how much they've has happened to destroy small farmers all over the world, and yet the food systems keep on working, nowhere near as well as they used to. But it's amazing how hard everybody is working to keep things working in the face of just this incredible it's an incredible wave of making life, inserting more friction into everything. We are in a high friction environment, and every day the friction goes up. And part of that is you're inserting technology into everything, which is designed for surveillance and control. It's not designed for productivity, at least in the Western world. So the the friction is rising, and you can see the frustration in the general population is rising with it. So,
And the things that you see in Netherlands, like we talked about when we were in Netherlands with you, Catherine. Every country we go to, it's the same story with a different accent. I was just
mhm,
talking with a bunch of Canadians the other day, for a couple hours, I would say, and it was the same. It's the same thing with a Canadian accent. You go to Germany, it's the same thing with a German accent. Here in Japan, it's the same thing that you see. It's exact, and like the so-called migration and food issues, and It's all the same. The jabs, exact same with a
One of
Japanese
the
accent.
things, Mike, I wish it was amazing because when Michael was here, one of the things I started to talk with him about, because you were very focused on the effort to market marijuana and marijuana related products to youth all around the world. You were seeing it in Asia, you were seeing it in the United States, you were seeing it in Europe. And I was reading a book on addiction by a neuroscientist about sort of how addiction works. And it was extraordinary to me because in the book, they described all these different drugs that people are getting addicted to that I'd never heard of before. And there were so many, it was amazing. And you and I got together, I don't know if you remember this, and we put together this big chart and called it Vectors of Addiction and started listing out all the addictions that are being marketed to people. You know, all the different drugs, alcohol, sugar, on and on and on, porn. And we just started going, this. And what we realized was, if you're a young person, oh my God, you are being inundated by a tsunami of efforts, from software bots to influencers to people who are trying to get you addicted to something, anything. It's amazing.
Right.
And I think, it really helps to sit back and say, wait a minute, this is a war. Somebody's trying to kill me. and
Right.
and I need to realize that, we have enormous financial interests who make money from creating addiction. And I need to understand that that's the environment I live in and I need to overcome it. I need to sail above it.
And just imagine how many addictions there are. We tried to figure them out, but it's what's the name of that book? Actually, I might want to read it. Or if you recommend it, I'll read it. Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
uh, I'd have to go in the other room and
Oh,
get it.
you're
I'll
like
send it to
me.
you.
I can read a whole book and not know the title, and I'm serious.
No, but I finished it a couple months ago. I'll think of it.
But once they, they're clearly trying to get as many people addicted to anything, whatever it is, and then through that they can feed you the poison, whatever that is, right?
Right.
Whatever the poison is, whether they're trying to addict people with nicotine or caffeine, nicotine, alcohol, whatever. I mean, there's so many things that can be used.
Video games,
Well, but
Michael. Video games and
yeah, absolutely.
gambling.
Video
The,
games,
the video
yep,
game is
gambling.
the video game aspect to me is unbelievable. What they're like casinos.
Well, one of the things we've covered a lot, we have a money and market show on the Solari Report, and we've covered a lot the sports gambling and the online gambling and the prediction markets. I don't know if you saw this headline, Michael. You're going to laugh. Cantor Fitzgerald is now integrating the prediction markets and sports gambling somehow with their fund management. So you can do this in your brokerage account, if you can imagine that. I'm not quite sure yet how it works. I haven't
This is
tried it, but
this is
if you
just gross.
well, the sports gambling in America has gone what we covered, and I'm trying to remember the year. It started at 5 billion a year, and now it's at over 600 billion a year. It's
600
extraordinary.
billion a year. And can you imagine how corrupt the sports will be at this point? I mean, it's like, if it was corrupt before, it's nothing like now because, even every player can throw the game after the player takes a bet or his wife takes a bet or whatever. It's just stunning
So,
what they're doing.
so here's what I want to talk about. So, if you look at the energy war that's going on, what you're watching is an effort by the United States and the Anglo-American alliance to assert control of energy markets worldwide. And part of this is a competition between China and the West as to who has the lowest cost of capital and who has the lowest cost of energy, right? And the question is, what is the West strategy? And that's not clear to me yet because, on one hand, they're in a competition with China. On the other hand, they're absolutely helping China succeed in a whole variety of different ways. So you have these two Siamese twins that are deeply dependent on each other.
Hmm.
And the question is, what is that relationship and what is the goal here? I mean, to
What?
me, the goal is depopulation. That's what I see.
Right. And, there's a huge amount of value in studying people's mythology, as you know, right? Because every war is about routes, resources, and ideology.
Right.
And cults, I mean, some of the books, I was just over in Texas after I spoke with G. Edward Griffin's, Red Pill, and I picked up some of the books that I had read years ago. And these are some of them. I was looking at them again. These are all on cults, right? I read so many on cults, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, stacks of them. 3.5 years, I did nothing. But after 9/11, I started really focusing on studying cults. I infiltrated one, lived with them, and the whole works, right? So, I mean, that's the Golden Bough. I'm sure you've heard of that one. But
Yeah.
but the point is the more you learn about cults, the more you realize, I mean, that's as important to study as mathematics. I mean, it's that level of serious, right? And when it comes to understanding people's mythology, especially as groups, you can predict a lot of the ways that they'll behave because people will try to make their mythology come true, right? And there are some mythologies that they do murder suicides, right? And this also happens on a big gross level, right? A huge level, right? Like for instance, the Jim Jones people, I mean, these people were amazing. And I read several books on Jim Jones. Like this one was quite interesting. But it's, and I take a huge amount. These are my old notes from 25 years ago before I went to the wars. I mangled my own
Uh-huh.
books. But what I'm getting to is I learned a lot about cults. I learned that nobody sees the cult that they're in. And that there's nothing that people won't do when they're completely captured in a cult. And there are people that are expert at creating cults. And you can create a cult like you can create a key for a lock. If there's something that you want to accomplish, you can create a cult to get that done, right?
Right.
Let's say you want to take Palestine because the Suez Canal opened in 1869, right? And so
Right.
you can create a cult and at a nation state level. I mean, the micro cults can be just like one person. Like actually, kind of a joke to myself is that the smallest cult is an individual, and that's a narcissist. But I don't know if that's true, but it's, what I mean. You can see, but there's just a cult with one person and one other, right? And then there's ship cults, and I don't mean cargo cults, but I mean like cults that would, like Dutch people, the Batavia, right? Take off from Rotterdam or whatever, and a cult can form within a couple of weeks. You can have a cult on that ship. This is common,
Right.
right? Especially because you cut them up, because especially in the old days, the ship is cut off from outside information. The cult leader there can control the food and everything. There's nowhere to hide, which is what they're trying to create now, right? So that you're cut off from outside. Anyway, but the thing is these cults, some of the cults are murder suicide type cults, and I see that with one component of the Zionist. It's clearly murder suicide. I don't see that with Chinese. They have their own cults, but I don't see the murder suicide thing going on. But that core component, not all Zionists, because that's a large, color wheel of different
Right.
groups. But that real core, the way the moves that they're making are very similar to moves that like Hitler would make, right? Clearly doing things that's going to get you killed ultimately, right? And of course, he was a product as well. He wasn't organic. And but what I'm getting to is the things that are happening clearly are detrimental to self, right? They're clearly not good for, say, Israel. I don't think the Zionists even care about the Israelis. They'll kill every single one of them because they want that land, right? They don't care about
Right.
Israelis. And they don't care about Christians. They don't care about Jews, although some Zionists are Jews. A lot of Zionists are atheists. A huge amount are atheists, and some are even Muslims, right? A lot of Kurds. But the point is I see a murder suicide going on. They're trying to kill as many people as possible. And if they die in the process, it's not that every one of them will want to do that. Like, the Jim Jones thing, there was a lot of people that were like, no, we're not going to drink the Kool-Aid, like literally, and they're getting shot, right? Because they didn't
Right.
want to drink the Kool-Aid. So there's some of them that, they went along with it up to a point, and then they got shot. And some escaped to the jungle. But the point is, that's what I see happening with this. And cults often will do that, Ragnarok type stuff.
So
Yeah.
my experience with, and I'll call it in this case the neocons, some were Zionists, some were not, but my experience is, uh, this is going to sound a little strange, but it's almost as though they have a kind of anxiety, and you can only, the anxiety rises and rises and rises, and you can only satisfy it by killing somebody or something or stealing something, right? So whether you're extracting value or extracting life, you have to kill, maim, and steal to get the anxiety to go away. And it's like a demonic impulse.
Oh,
There's a
100%.
there's a demonic impulse, and I'll never forget. I think I told you the story of a guy who used to do financial fraud for the Office of Naval Intelligence. And I said to him, I said, you're so good at finance and transactions. I could teach you how to make more money, legally, honestly. And he got very upset and he looked at me as though what I had proposed was the most castrating thing in the whole world, that he would literally lose his manhood if he made money honestly or ethically. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, he
And
wants
it
to be
was,
gangster.
yeah, he wants to be a gangster and he wants to defraud people. And that was what gave him the thrill, was the fraud.
You can clearly see
And
that with Trump. You can clearly see it. It's obvious.
right.
Yeah.
So, we just, for the third quarter wrap up, we're publishing something called Vectors of Grift.
Mm.
And an early version of it is going to publish in UK column with Mike Robinson. And
Mm.
basically, what I've discovered is that most citizens don't understand the grift models. So if there was a joy of cooking for grifting, what
Hmm.
are the recipes, right? So they
Hmm.
don't understand the recipes. And if you don't understand the recipes, it makes it hard to understand what's going on with the different kinds of grifts. So I decided, okay, for the third quarter wrap up, we're going to make, something called Vectors of Grifts, and it shows the different models and then with lots of examples so you can see how the grifts work. And that will make it much easier to cover all this grift.
Hmm.
One of the things that inspired it was actually the thing we did on vectors of addiction. But then the other thing that inspired it was the Council on Foreign Relations published an article in their spring edition. I pointed it out to you that basically said Trump doesn't have foreign policy. He has a grift policy. So whatever helps him and his friends grift, that's the policy. And these are two academics, and they make a very good case that that's true. So, and I
They
think it,
clearly enjoy killing people as well. They clearly do. I mean, they
I
celebrate
know,
it. They openly celebrate it. That gives them joy. This cult that I infiltrated called Agor, right? This is one of the books, and this is the one, right? I read this book before I went to the wars, and not only that, but I found a lot of these people in India and Nepal and California and Hawaii, and they get a thrill out of that. But they also think they get a spiritual power. They get a spiritual power called Shakti, right? Which a lot of Hindus will know what Shakti is. But
from killing people.
yeah, yeah, actually, and that's why they think that they'll get more from children because children haven't used their Shakti yet.
Right.
They think that they'll get more from powerful people, like this one. I put the book up, but the one guy that I actually advised in the search for him, his name was Justin Alexander Shelter, and he went missing in India, and I read his diary, and a book came out about it, and I'm in the book actually, but because I advised on what did I do with that book anyway, it's called Lost in Shangri-La, the Valley of Death, or something like that, right? And it's the story of Justin Alexander Shelter, and he was 35 years old. He went missing in like September, I think, of maybe 2016 or so. And that was when some of his friends and others reached out to me and asked me for advice on how to search for somebody that's missing in India. So I read his diary and I read it several times. I said, go find this one guy right here, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the guy in the diary, I'm like, that guy probably killed him, actually, right? So they actually did go get that guy. This was all in the Indian newspapers in English, actually, not just Hindi. It was a huge story in India. So this guy that I told them to go get, he did get arrested, right? And then died suddenly, like say 3 days later, I think it was, in the prison up there. And the mother of Justin told me she thought that he was murdered, and his best friend Skeels, I think his name was anyway, Skeels was his name, and he told me as well. They think that the police murdered him, right? The guy that I told them to go get. Anyway, the bottom line is that I just read his diary. That's all I did, and I said, go get this guy. They went and got him. And a lot of people think that he killed Justin, and then he just died weirdly in prison. I mean, not in prison, but in jail. After about 3 days, it's all over the Indian news. You can find it easily. But but the point is why did they kill so many people? These books up here, I've got it on thugs. Have you ever heard of thugs before? I got a whole section on thugs. Thugies. They're called thugies, right? The British think that they killed like 3 million people, right? They call them the stranglers. They call them the deceivers, right? And when the way Justin was describing this guy that he was talking with, I'm like, that guy is either an Agori, a Naga, or a Thugi, right? Now, the British went to war with the Thugis. The commander, his name was Slee. I've got like 8 books by Slee right here. But it was a cult. It was a Shiva. It was a Kali cult, right? And also they worship Shiva, but actually most of them were Muslim, even though that's Hindu, but I get it. But they were mostly Muslim, but they were robbing people. They killed a huge number of people. Finally, they killed some British soldiers, and that was when the British finally went to war on them, and the British genocided them as best they could, but they went underground. So now you see huge numbers of foreigners go missing in India, right? So when I was hunting those cannibals and whatnot, it was very serious, very dangerous. I mean, Justin, when I'm reading his diary, I'm like, he doesn't understand the danger that he's in. He was a smart guy, but he vanished. And I think that this one guy probably killed him, almost certainly.
So let me ask your estimate. Murder Inc. in the United States. Murder Inc. was a huge syndicate doing assassination for hire under the mob. How many people do you think Murder Inc. killed?
I don't know, but one of the reasons that those cults kill them is, well, they rob them often, but they also do it because they think that they get their spirits, right? They get shocked.
Right.
They get that, which is, and that's why, like, the Agoris will do cannibalism, right? Because they think that they're getting spiritual power. And you can see that with a lot of the Zionists. They clearly, I'm telling you, those people are just like the Agoris. They're just like them, except they have jets. The difference between that core, I'm talking about the core Zionists, the really hardcore inner circle. Those guys are just like the Agoris.
So let me take this back to Yellowstone. So do you remember? Have you ever seen the TV series Yellowstone?
No, but you mentioned it to me.
Okay.
Before.
So 2 years ago, this was in our wrap up. In Yellowstone, there's this group called the Beck Brothers, the 2 brothers, and they just play dirty. They're dirty. They kill people. And one of the things they do is John Dutton, played by Kevin Costner, is the hero. He runs the Yellowstone Ranch, and they poison his cattle, right? So, but they're constantly doing dirty tricks. They kill people. They poison your livestock. They just play dirty. And part of it is they get energy from killing and maiming, and that's how they are. And so finally, at the end of the second season, the guy who runs the Yellowstone Ranch and his sons realize, we're just going to have to kill him. So they come up with a complex plan and figure out how they can kill him legally, where it looks like it's self-defense, and they get away with it, right? So I said at the end of at the second quarter, what are we going to do about the Beck brothers? That's the problem facing society. We've let the Beck brothers get away with it year after year after year after year. And if you look at what they've done in Gaza, right, it's getting worse and worse and worse. They're exporting the technology they used to do Gaza all the way around the world with the drones and the surveillance and everything else. I mean, if you look at what's going on in the United States with the integration into the U.S. military, they're planning on doing Gaza everywhere in one form or another. And
Clearly.
But the reason they've gotten so, it's like a horse that gets a bit in its teeth, the more they do, the more they get away with it. And so you've heard me say thousands of times, crime that pays is crime that stays. People keep letting them get away with it. And the question is, how are we going to stop them? And because if we don't stop them, they're going to kill everybody,
They will
right?
because and they're drug addicts. They're drug addicts on that
Right,
high that they get, and they need more and more of that drug, which means more
right.
and more death. Look, these data centers, which you talk about frequently, right? I mean, with those data centers and with the drones and the tracking technology, they can make millions of drones per month. If they can't do it now, they could easily ramp up to do
Right,
that, right? I mean,
right.
they could easily uh, do absolutely mass genocide across just with drones, much less with famine. I mean,
Well, but
or
here's the
farmland.
thing. If they have the power to do it, why wouldn't they do it?
They would do it for sure. For
Right,
sure. Yeah.
right.
This is
I
that
agree.
book I was mentioning, by the way. And they actually mentioned what I was doing in there. I didn't actually go help search for them because I was busy with coups and things like that. But I mean, but so I just, advised from afar. And they did actually, like I said, go. I mean, the thing is, I know the subject so well that I was able to just read his diary and say, get that guy. He got arrested. And then he just mysteriously died in jail.
So, can I make a suggestion?
Hmm.
The way to pull the plug on the Beck brothers is to stop financing them.
That's and start arresting them. And actually, I mean, right now they're going to expand this to Turkey and Egypt, right?
Hmm.
And they're going to expand it to Iraq. I would not be surprised to see Mosul Dam get blown up. I would not be surprised. In fact, I would expect eventually to see Brazil at war with Argentina, all part of the same. You're going to end up seeing
Well,
combat
I
soon
didn't
in
know
Panama.
if you saw the latest headline of the U.S. trying to intercede in the Brazilian elections. So
The U.S., right? I mean, it's going to
they've
happen,
done
right? Yeah.
Venezuela and
Yeah.
they've done Colombia. They're going to do Cuba, and now Brazil's next.
Keep in
Right.
mind, China gets a lot of their food from Brazil. And so if you're going to, it's clear that the Zionists want to put China into famine. And so if you're going to do that, you need to close Malacca, close Sunda, Lombok. You need to close, a few other things. I think you'll end up seeing Danish Strait closed and probably war in the North Sea at some point and the Baltic, but also uh, Brazil. I mean, and I think you're going to see some serious action in Panama and Colombia, right? That's clearly building up right now, Panama and Colombia. I think you might
So
see combat soon in the Darien
so
area.
so right now, the U.S. is struggling with real trouble in the bond market. So the 30-year is up to 525,
Hmm.
and you know Basan has been buying back bonds, and the game that the U.S. has always played is as they don't mind losing wars as long as they can endure and lose them for long, long periods of time. Everybody makes money, and then you simply bankrupt your target, right? So you don't you don't beat them with physical warfare. You engage in physical warfare till you bankrupt them, and then you get them in a debt trap or you get them bankrupt. But that means you've got to have the most powerful bond market. You've got to be able to go the distance in the bond market and the currency markets. So now we're seeing the U.S., there are real questions about whether or not they can play that game again with what's happening now. And my question to you is, do you think they can?
Oh, they'll keep doing it because they're bleeding us dry and they enjoy killing.
Hmm.
And part of the process is also about depopulation. Keep in mind, President Grant, after he was president, he did that, more than 2 year global tour. When he was in Japan, he was warning the Japanese and the Chinese that foreign entities would try to get you fighting over Luchu, which is Okinawa, and then loan you money and own you. He was warning against it explicitly. I've got it in
Right.
his letters right here. Actually,
Yeah, well,
he
that's
was
what they do. You start a war and get everybody in a debt trap.
he was warning about that in 1879 in clear
Right.
words in his letters to the emperor, which I've got in the other room here. It's amazing. This is an old game. It was going on a lot longer than that actually.
So with that, Catherine, let me ask you, both of you, do you expect the bombs to start back up again in Iran and other places? Because it
One
seems like
hundred percent.
it's in a lull right now.
Let's say 99.9.
So, they're going to keep this going because it's an endurance battle, right? The question is how? How do you keep it going without looking like you're foolish?
They're
You
way
know,
beyond that part.
right?
But
But
actually,
you've got to have a military strategy that has some kind of military logic to it. It can't just be theater.
well, I mean, if you're depopulating, they're doing a great job setting it up. That's why, that's why I actually predicted the date of the original attack. I was only off by like 72 hours or so, right?
Right,
And
right.
I normally don't try to predict dates, but I could just kind of see it. And then, in July of 2025, I put on my Substack that I thought that the Zionists would close Hormuz and blame it on the Iranians. I put that clear, and like I think it was in the title on July 3rd, 2025, because that would be the natural. That's what that
Right,
beast would do.
right.
Yeah, I think that
So
you're going to see it. Yeah.
October 27th is the Israeli election, right?
Yeah, on the big picture, I don't think that is even part of the calculation. Like for instance, when it comes to Trump and Netanyahu, when you look at the larger, I mean the grand strategy, not the strategy.
Right,
Strategy is like
right,
almost low level stuff at this point. But on the grand strategic level, Trump is irrelevant, and
right,
Netanyahu is irrelevant on the grand strategic level.
right. Except for Netanyahu doesn't want to lose the election, and under existing conditions, he's going to. Because
Maybe
remember,
he'll end up, maybe he'll end up in prison, but that won't end the war.
no,
It'll
no, no,
just
no,
keep
no.
going.
I don't think
Yeah,
that'll change the strategy.
yeah.
But I do think if you're Netanyahu, it pays to do something before the 27th that could get you reelected. Although, if you look at how far behind he is in the polls, that's hard to imagine.
Yeah, I would not be surprised that they do anything, actually. I mean, that these are absolutely insane people. There's nothing that they won't do. Nothing. They'll do anything that they can get away with by the laws of physics, right? That's the
Right,
only law they know is the laws of physics.
right. So I don't know what if they bomb, what are they going to bomb?
Well,
I mean,
Iran's not the target. Iran's not the target. Global population is the target, right? Iran is
right,
just is a subset. They're just like Ukraine and Russia. These are, and look at the so many things that are. Look at that list that Solari report just you put out. I mean, long targets, and a lot of them are not anywhere. They're not even in Asia or Europe. They're in They're in North America and South America, right? There's so
right,
many. Yeah, they're all over the world, and here in Japan as
right,
well.
right. It's
So I mean,
global. It's a global.
absolutely.
I mean, basically, Richard Medhurst did a very good article, and I think I share it with you on and how they're trying to go from the petrodollar to the petro gas dollar, right?
Right.
And he described exactly what they're up to. I think he did a very good job. It's linked in the collection.
You have extremely strong math skills, so you'll appreciate this, I think. When people are doing predictions and or let's say analysis, let's say, and they're trying to figure out why they did such and such, and they go, that was stupid, Fauci fooled him or something, right? Or, why did they pick on Iran? And because they wanted the Strait of Hormuz closed, right? That's why they picked on Iran. I mean, that's
Right,
why I put it in Substack last July in 2025,
right,
right? Because that's it. I think you'll end up seeing Mosul Dam get knocked and maybe Aswan, right? I think you're going to over in Egypt and Mosul and Iraq, of course. And but I think you're going to see a lot of things like that. Keep in mind, the phosphate. Iraq used to be a major phosphate producer.
hmm
But that's not on the list because we took them offline in the 90s. Right? I mean,
right,
so they were already. So Trump didn't have anything to do with that. Netanyahu didn't have anything to do with that. That happened. So they were a major phosphate producer. Morocco has 70% of the holdings, right? Of the global
right,
holdings of
right,
phosphate, right?
right,
So I mean, so there's a lot more going on than what's happening there. And anyway, the math joke, you might say, when we constantly see people saying that's incompetence or idiocy, right? So that's the factor that they try to make the equation balance. So I call that I squared equals -1, right? The imaginary number, in math.
right,
So it's I squared equals -1. The I squared is incompetence and idiocy, right? But in reality, that's not what's happening. It's sabotage, right? It's sabotage. And once you realize that it's not incompetency and idiocy, although that may also be part of the components, but they're actually doing a methodical plan to reduce the population on planet Earth
right,
and control the remnant. I mean, they want
Right.
to
And
kill
think of it,
billions
it's
of
a
people.
great, that's why I call it COVID 2.0. But it's a great way to sneak up on people because they think that they don't see this sneaking up. So they think something else is going on, right? They
You know,
don't realize it's COVID 2.0.
Can
yeah,
I ask you, Catherine? Can I ask you something about that? Because both you guys, but COVID 2.0, why is it? And this is my opinion, so you tell me if you agree or disagree. Why is it so many people have forgotten what happened 6.5 years ago in relation to the lockdowns and warp speed and death jabs and snitching on your neighbors and whatnot, and they think that this is not possible again to happen.
So, I don't know what most people think. I think there's a combination. When I work with people, I find many different fact patterns. So I always say it's like Baskin and Robbins ice cream. There's many different flavors. It's not one thing.
mm,
So I think a major, it's a tendency of most humans to focus on what they need to get done. So, if I'm Michael and I'm having a baby and I'm publishing a Substack and I'm doing all these things and I want to finish reading this book, you get focused on the things you're trying to accomplish over the next, you know, 1 to 12 months. And you tend to, I think a lot of people tend to try and be positive. And so if you're focused on what you're doing and you're being positive, you let the past, go behind and you don't think about it. Okay. So I think that's number one. I think number two is we are ingesting a huge amount of neurowarfare. So I think the entrainment technologies, the subliminal programming, all of these are designed to do memory wipes. So I've had so many different experiences where I educate somebody about something and instead every night they sit in front of a digital flat screen TV for 3 hours and literally 2 weeks later they don't remember a thing. They've had a memory wipe. So, I think neurowarfare is a part of it. I don't know, Michael, you got any other theories behind those besides those two?
yeah. Masako and I are still talking about the things we learned from you earlier. Like in December and January. We're still chewing on it. I mean, like you were talking about the entrainment. And so I've
Hmm.
been looking into. I mean, that was very important. You throw out these little things sometimes, and then I study them for
What's
2 weeks, right?
what's the entrainment, Michael?
You just like throw it out and walk away. It's like
What's
no.
what's what's
Oh,
entrainment for people that don't
oh,
know?
ask Catherine. I mean, and with the phone
So,
calls and that sort of
right.
stuff, it's very important.
If you go to Solari, we have an excellent interview on neurowarfare with a top academic scholar in the US who's an expert in military grade neurowarfare, written a lot of books. Very good. We also have a mind control collection. If you just put in mind control, you'll get a wonderful collection of lots of links and videos. Because I've studied this and I've studied it carefully when I was an investment advisor. I had clients who were targeted with entrainment technology to try and trick them into doing fraudulent investments. If you look at a lot of the cybercrime where people are, basically defrauded of money, I think a lot of it uses this technology to encourage them to invest in things they wouldn't be investing in unless they were influenced by this kind of technology. And we can talk about that more as well. We also have a series which is excellent by a guy named Josh Stahman called Cognitive Liberty, where we talk about all the different ways that our minds are manipulated, from propaganda and disinformation to how we're educated, and then entrainment technology and subliminal programming. So I'm not a scientist and I can't explain to you how it works, Mike, but essentially, entrainment technology is designed to cause you to resonate with things that you normally wouldn't resonate with. It sort of opens you up and gets you feeling good. And then subliminal programming can come in, it makes you more susceptible. And it's a way of getting, I used to have this experience as an investment advisor where people would literally want to invest in something where they had a 100% chance of losing everything. And it was obvious, but they had been sold this stuff, on the telephone using this technology. I had it used on me during the litigation, and I've been at conferences where I've had it used. And it's very powerful. It can get you saying and doing things you would never normally say or do. It's mind control technology. So, and it's being used. It's being used on smartphones. It's being used on TVs. It's being, it could be used on the screen right now. It's used in conferences. It was funny because for many years, I believed it was being used in the Enron analyst meetings because the analysts, you'd read the presentation, it wasn't that great. And then the analysts would get all excited. And I said, I think they're using entrainment. And I had it used on me at an investment conference. And I tell the story in the first thing we ever did. We did a weekly interview at Solari on, it's called entrainment technology, financial fraud, entrainment technology, and subliminal programming. It's basically designed for my investment advisory clients to help them understand that this stuff existed and to protect them from it. And I tell the story of how I experienced it in the investment conference in that interview. And if you want a good introduction, it's old, but it's very, very good.
How did you recognize it was being used on you, and how quickly did you notice it?
I knew right away during the litigation it was being used. So I knew enough about it. When I was doing the big loan sales, I would not talk on the telephone. I would have somebody.
That was important, what you said on
Right.
that. You told us that when we were in Netherlands,
Right.
and Masako and I have been trying to
Right.
learn more about that.
So I would have somebody listen to my messages or talk to the person on the phone and then type me an email and send me the email so that I could read it. And I did that specifically because we had set up the loan sales, so we're swinging billions of dollars around. We had set up the loan sales so they could not be compromised by anybody who'd been mind controlled. You couldn't have one mind control person. The only way you could compromise them is to mind control tons of people, a way that just wouldn't be practical. And in fact, if they were compromised, it was because the feds, I mean, it would have been the U.S. intelligence agencies were accessing the bank wire system, and the banks were compromised and working with the intelligence agencies. So, and that's impossible to stop. So if the U.S. intelligence agencies are working with the bankers to compromise by getting information off the bank wire system, there's nothing you can do. So, but I knew how to design the loan sales to be impervious to mind control compromise, and I think that's one of the reasons they wanted to kick me out because they couldn't compromise them.
Wow,
This is a vital subject. The importance of this cannot.
Yeah, but if you look at Mike's
understated.
face, I'm a little bit worried because he's like,
Yeah.
so Mike, talk to us. Talk to us.
which Mike, Michael, or which Michael Yan or Michael Ferris?
Michael Ferris.
Oh, well, you saying that, that's where I keep tying everything back to 2020 because that ultimate psyop and the nonviolent martial law that was declared in the United States and abroad. Do you think it was executed successfully?
What was executed?
The
Do I think
lockdowns, the messaging,
Yeah, I think they did a fabulous job of using all these different techniques from financial incentives and peer pressure and disinformation and propaganda and entrainment technology and subliminal programming and mind control to basically do a radical re-engineering of the political and economic system. And while they did it, they made a fortune.
That was a full spectrum attack. I mean, they came at it with
Yeah.
everything in the whole menu. They threw the whole phone book of techniques, out there.
Yeah.
I just got a message in the last several messages in the last few days about a young lieutenant in the military who just took another COVID jab. And one of his family members is very upset. And he was asking me if I know a doctor. And I'm like, he just took another jab. He's like, yeah, he took the jab. And he's a young lieutenant. He's a second lieutenant. So, I mean, they're obviously still doing that.
So the CDC just funded a $1.2 billion contract with Pfizer for more COVID shots for adults and children. Now, we know, and Senator Ron Johnson has proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, that those vaccines are dangerous. and children don't need them for any reason. So if you're poisoning children with COVID shots and the US government is and the Trump administration is funding $1.2 billion to do so. I mean, I was thinking of you, Michael, because at the same time that Trump issues 1.2 billion to Pfizer for COVID shots for adults and children, he's also coming out with this executive order, trying to dial back the vaccine schedule. And of course, what's real? The executive order is a press release. It has no standing under law. The 1.2 billion is real.
Yeah, I saw you
And
say
I'm
that on an interview. I don't know where, but yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so and it was on the Shannon Joyce show. So I
Oh,
said there were two things. And then the Navy mandated the flu shot, which apparently is mRNA technology. Now, stop, just hold this thought for a second. You know what they're doing with all the trade routes all around the world, and you know how much of it depends on the Navy, the US Navy performing to control the sea lanes, right?
right.
If you're doing all these trade bottlenecks, and you know what's going on in Taiwan and Japan, you need sailors everywhere and you need them top performing, right? Why would you poison them?
They're doing a murder suicide. And I think we are going to see a draft. I think we're going to see a draft big time. I've got old draft cards and draft notifications from the Civil War, the Great War, which is World War One, World War Two, Korean War, and Vietnam, right here. And I mean, they're unbelievable. You look at, I mean, they were dragging people off the streets in the '60s in the United States, just like they're doing in Ukraine now. I mean,
Right.
people. I mean, you probably have seen some of those old videos. I mean, just like Ukraine, they'll do it again here and or in the United States and here. I'm in Japan now, but I think also they will then put a lot of these people who've come from over the southern border and whatnot, don't even speak English. They'll stuff those into American uniforms. I mean, they'll use them as weapons. I mean, it's easy. This is old school stuff. I mean, raising foreign armies. That's why special forces even exist. You know what I did. I mean, it's what special forces. They were actually made to do that, right? I mean,
Well,
that's
but here's the question. Do they want the US to lose the war?
yes, clearly, clearly, yeah. I
Well,
mean, they're destroying the
remember
United States.
right. They're destroying the United States, but do they want the dollar system to collapse?
I don't know what they all. I mean, you talk about digital money all the time, and so I mean that obviously is the direction it's going. With the digital money or whatever, however it ends up being, but they want
Well, but
complete slavery.
they think using distributed ledger technology in the stock and bond market and the currency market, they can bring 4 billion people into the US currency, the US Treasury market, and the US stock and bond market with digital assets and digital tokens.
They
They
don't
really
want four
believe they can
billion.
do that.
I mean, keep in mind there's different parts of this beast, and there's different components that have different ideas. I mean, there's still people out there building infrastructure, even while others are clearly trying to depopulate, right? So it's not like it's one brain that's doing this.
Right.
It's a multiplayer
No,
game,
but
right?
they're serious. They're going to use digital techno. DTC is doing the pilot now and is going to go commercial in October. They want to bring 4 billion people into the US stock market. They think the US stock market's going to grow to 90% of global stock markets. Right now it's at about 68%. And they also think they can bring those 4 billion people into stable coins, which sends the money into the US Treasury market, getting people coming out of all their currencies around the world and into the dollar system. And they've
Mm.
been very open that they intend to do that. And the stable coins are going to roll out starting in the beginning of 2027. They're going to go commercial on the stocks and bonds in October. I don't know how fast they think they can roll it out, but here's what you need to understand. They intend to go for anybody they can reach through a mobile payment system. And what they're saying, and this gets back to sports betting and what they're doing with sports betting, they plan to attract into the stock and bond markets with digital tokens. They're going to go 24/7 and offer 20 times margin.
Mm.
Right. Exactly. So imagine you're a small business in South Korea. You can buy stable coins and then you can turn around with the money you can borrow on your stablecoin network and you can go into the stock market, the US stock market. You can buy Apple stock with the digital tokens and you can buy it on 20 times margin. Right, exactly. So people always say, oh, this bubble's going to burst. And I say, if you look at the tools that are being amassed to blow the biggest bubble I've ever seen in my life, that's what they're amassing. Doesn't mean it's going to work, but they are planning on pumping out more liquidity than we have ever seen pumped out on this planet.
So let me,
Wow.
Catherine. Okay, so simple terms, like I'm 5 years old here. You little independent owner, another country. They get enticed to participate in the system because they're going to be able to leverage, let's say 20 times what the amount of money they have in a stable coin. Let's say it's $1,000 stable coin for simple math. So that
Yeah,
means they can leverage
so
20,000.
yeah, so they can buy $20,000 of Apple stock.
Free money in their eyes.
Yeah.
Cost of
So
yeah.
so think what the way you're going to get everybody around the planet in the dollar is you're going to basically give them free money. Remember the pallets of cash they used to fly to Iraq?
Mm.
Right. This is just the cyber version of pallets of cash. So let me say it another way. You remember the story, and we talked about this, 1989. I'm in Washington, and the wall comes down. Everybody's all excited, and they say, oh, East Germany and West Germany have to have treaties. They have to get together. We have to have meetings. It's going to take 10 years. And Herman Kohl, who was the chancellor, said no. He offered an incredible premium to everybody in East Germany to come into the Deutschmark. In 24 hours, the country's unified. He basically tendered for the East Germans with a sweet premium on the currency, and they all came in. And the unification was over like that. Okay. So, you know how a company tenders for another company to merge in the stock market? So, one company tenders for the stock of another company. So, the United States dollar system is planning on tendering in the open market for 4 billion citizens worldwide to get them into the dollar, into the treasury market and the US stock market. That's what they're going to do. And they're very clear about this. They're very bold.
So they're not going to need to print. They won't need to print anything because it'll be all digital. So they can make up whatever number that they need to in regards to this
Right.
then.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
How could this not be successful, Catherine? People will go for this all day long. It reminds me
Well,
of like
here's
you
the
setting
thing.
up a gambling app.
They're going to be pumping out entrainment with it. Right? And when you pump out entrainment to bring somebody in, it tends to be very successful.
Ultimately, if they are successful with depopulation, and I think that they'll be successful to some level, and they've already are to some level.
Yeah.
But I
Right.
think that they're gonna be far more successful before it's over. Then
Right.
they'll
You know
just
why?
they'll have everybody's property, right?
You're going to have every family and every small business and every small farm in a debt trap.
Mm.
You're going to sucker them all into it. You got the countries in a debt trap. Now you're going to tender for the population and put them in a debt trap.
Yeah. And then they own everybody, and at that point, controlling the food supply as well, because that's the clear direction that this is going into
Well, but
control of food supply.
once you get everybody in a debt trap, then the thing about it's 2030 and you have no assets.
Right.
I mean, this is, and then remember on the distributed ledger, what they're going to do is they're going to add an automatic third lock. So you can't trade your stock unless if you break the rule, then they freeze your stock, right? And you can't trade it. So remember a couple weeks ago, Basant said, oh, we just seized $1 billion of Iranian wallets. We just took them, right?
Hmm.
So where's all this crypto and digital assets going to be? They're going to be in digital wallets that they can seize just like that.
Right. Right.
Right.
So does that with that tying it back into the conflict in the Middle East and the shortages, the energy shortages that are creating, are they the government's creating a problem, offering a solution that people are going to be begging for in order to get some type of, and this is the COVID 2.0, get some
Well,
type of.
why did the Iranians end up with that many wallets? Because at the end of last year, as part of the covert operation, we drove the Iranian currency down 94% against the US dollar. And so to protect their money, they went into US stablecoins and crypto. And so once we started the war, boom, we seized the wallets.
Hmm.
It's economic warfare.
Yeah, that's one of the major components, clearly, and
So
food.
I showed that video in the second quarter wrap up, and my comment was, if I was Secretary Bethan and I was trying to persuade 4 billion people around the world to buy stable coins starting in 2027 when the Genius Act goes into effect, I would not say this so loudly. It's not a good marketing technique to say, oh, if you put your money in this, we can seize it just like that.
They
Right?
make a lot of errors in communications. They can't keep their mouth shut, and they love to brag. So that's one of the,
Right.
and their arrogance actually is like planting landmines around themselves. So
Well,
they actually are their worst enemies as well.
so let's look at the other countries, okay? So I'm assuming the 4 billion doesn't include people in China because the Chinese have the
Mm.
technological capability to stop, to make it illegal to trade US stable coins or to, or to provide access to their payment systems, right? Or their mobile
Hmm.
systems, right?
Hmm.
So some countries have the ability, through law or through technology to say no, you can't come in. But this is a problem not just of other currencies coming into the dollar. This is a problem of local economies. Because what's going to happen in the United States is, depending on how they roll these out, they're going to try and get all the people who are banking in local banks, in Colorado, in Tennessee, in Kansas, as well as in the EU or in Peru or Ecuador, to come out of their local banking system where the money is multiplying around their local banking system and move it out of that and into the treasury market. Now, if I put money in a local bank, that local bank makes all sorts of loans locally that build enterprises, right? If
Hmm.
I take it out of there, that stops circulating in the local area and I put it in the treasury market where it finances the military. So you're talking about
Yeah,
sucking money out of local banking systems all around the world and moving it into something that finances the US military.
they don't want to build local small businesses and that sort of thing. They want obviously global fascism.
You're going to destroy local economies when you do this. It's going to be a
Yeah.
giant sucking sound out of local economies into
Hmm.
the treasury market.
Mm. And fewer companies that are huger and huger.
Right. Well, and you have to be a preferred provider because so much of your business depends on government purchases, government contracts, government regulation, and protecting you against government enforcement. So I had a very successful business. We were highly profitable. We were driven out of business by dirty trick enforcement
Mm.
intentionally. That's a form of economic warfare. Now, I say all of this. Are you ready for the good news? Let's talk about the good news because and it's important to see the bubble tools amassing and what they're going to, the play they're going to try and do, because
Hmm.
when it hits, it's going to be a tsunami of money, right? And it's going to start at the beginning of 2027. So we need to understand this and we need to be prepared to deal with it. The To me, the good thing is, as you look at everything that's been going on that we've been talking about, this is the first time in my life, Michael, that I've seen a huge number of very experienced, talented people basically say, you know something? Those guys are psychopaths. Those guys are demonic. I'm going to get away from the pro centralization team. I want nothing
Mm.
to do with them. I don't care if I, won't be rich. I don't care if I won't have social prestige. There's nothing positive that can be happening here. So I'll give you an example. You saw an immensely talented group of people organize into MAHA, Make America Great, Make America Healthy Again. Then also a lot of talented people organized into MAGA because they thought in those two efforts you could help change things in a positive way. And both of them have just walked through a buzzsaw and gotten absolutely slaughtered. I mean, when you look at all the things the Maha group did to change the laws and the rules and the funding on food or drugs, these are very talented, capable people, and they have worked very hard to make very positive changes. And what they finally discovered, oh, the Uniparty is absolutely committed to depopulation and there's nothing you can do. And so what's happening? They're saying, oh, there's I give up on trying to work my way up the ladder or work with the ladder or change the ladder. I'm going to leave and go over and join the decentralization team. Now, you and I have been members of good standing. You know, we are OG members of the pro decentralization team, right?
Right. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Hmm.
We are the original gangsters. So we've been doing this for many, many decades, right? Suddenly everybody's coming over and saying, hey, you're right. Let's get something done over here. And it's the first time ever that I've seen that. I mean, you know how lonely it has been over here.
Right. You know, one of the things, it's almost like the people like Trump and his team almost do work for us at this point because they are so evil that they are look when Trump went out on that, snuck out in Turkey and got on the other airplane, but left other people like members of his staff and other
Yeah,
VIPs as decoys. They
right,
will sell each other out like in an instant. Any serious leader never would have used his people as a decoy for something
right,
like that.
right,
There is no chance that a serious person would have done that, but they will. They know that they will all stab each other in the back for fun, and that is one of their big liabilities because they can't trust each other. There's no
right.
chance.
It's the Midianite thing. So you and I know, I call it the Midianite thing from the story of Gideon. The Midianites kill each other. You know, it is what it is. But I think to me the thing is I'm seeing all sorts of really capable, talented people saying, "Ha, okay, I'm going over to the decentralization team. That's where we can get something done." And that's a big breakaway. And that's the beginning of real solutions. So I don't know. I'm very enthusiastic about what's happening right now.
Well, I mean, we're as enthusiastic as ever. You know what I mean? I mean, that's why I'm up at 3 in the morning talking with you. You know what I mean? We get great ideas from you. You know, I mean, Misako would be up too right now, but she's got to make babies.
No,
It's
no, she
growing.
can't be up. She can't be up. Although,
She wants to be here, but
it
I
was
was like,
so
no,
much
no, no, go to
fun.
bed.
It was so much fun having her here. Oh, the tea. You have not lived until Misako does like the tea
She
ceremony.
she left me ginger tea before she went to bed. This is ginger tea. She's always teeing me up.
I
Ah,
oh, go ahead, Catherine. Sorry.
no, you go.
No, I was just going to say, I think sometimes people will focus on, what is about to occur, but fail to realize or recognize, and you guys just both pointed it out, there are going to be tremendous opportunities through all this. The world is
So,
not ending.
right, no, no, the world's not ending. And the other thing is, as Michael and I know, this is the year of the fire horse. So
Mm,
there's only one way to deal with a fire horse, and that's to charge forward.
yeah.
But I used to have a deputy at HUD who would say, "In the destruction of the old, let there be the creation of the new." And so the old systems are coming down, and new systems are arising, and we're having a battle as to whether those new systems will be tight central control or
Hmm.
something much more wonderful. That's the battle. And of course, the three of us are working for something much more wonderful than tight central control. And but we've got a lot of people in the mix. And Michael's right. You've got a lot of people who are um well, murder suicide's a good, they are deeply committed to depopulation. And including the fact that they think they can live forever with new technology or much longer lives, and they don't want the rest of us to, because that would be an environmental problem. So,
But notice none of the big dogs are doing that. You know, I've met three DCIs, right? Directors of CIA, right?
right.
Like Woolsey, who just died, Petraeus spent a significant time with him, and Gates traveled with him. You know, former Secretary of Defense, DCI. These guys ain't living forever. Woolsey just died, right? He was
Right, but
84.
they're sort of the bureaucrats who work for the top guys. They're not
They
top
are the
guys.
bureaucrat level, but you see the others like Bill Gates is not. He's still not upper echelon either, right? Look, they're not getting any younger, right? It's not like none of those people that we see have any miracle cures.
So I
I'm
have
not
to tell
seeing
you,
it.
there are two things I need to report to you. I have this Michael Yon list of things I need to tell Michael Yon. Um, Woolsey, you remember the story of me coming into a board meeting and freaking out Woolsey? Do you
Yeah,
remember that?
yeah.
Okay. So that's when I knew when Woolsey freaked out when I sat down next to him and I said, "Oh, James, how are you?" He was freaked, and I realized, oh, he was the one who approved the hit on me at the CIA because he was
Mm.
DCI when the hit started. So that's when I knew my problem was the CIA when Woolsey freaked because they never think they're going to have to face you at the board meeting. Now, that
He
was
would
when
get freaked out a lot too, wouldn't he? He was kind
he
of a
was he was a nervous guy. He,
yeah.
he was high
Hmm.
strung. He was a nervous guy.
Hmm.
Anyway, so he was a lawyer. I think he was a lawyer. Anyway, so during that period, that's when they started to use electromagnetic weaponry on us. They were using some kind of
Hmm.
directed energy, and it would go from 9 to 5 at night, and it was really physically very wearing on you. And that's when I started to study and learn about non-lethal weapons because they were using it on us.
Hmm.
And I got deep into it. In 1994, the year before, the Department of Justice and the military had made DoD had entered into a memorandum of understanding and agreement about domestic application of non-lethal weapons that DoD had developed, and that's when all this kind of stuff started. On the government side, it was also being used by the real estate industry. Anyway, so one of the reasons I left Washington was to get away from that weaponry. And so if you look at the application of that weaponry once I left Washington, it was much less, it was significantly less because it was really life-threatening over long periods of time. Anyway, and that's a whole nother story I can talk about because they were using low-grade biological warfare on us as well. I thought I told you all that story when you were here. But anyway, I read Woolsey's obituary in an article covering his death. And apparently, according to his wife, in the last years of his life, he was suffering from Havana syndrome because that technology was being used on him.
Mm.
And I read that and I thought, well, what goes around comes around. You
Mm.
know, I started dealing with Woolsey when I'm dealing with this 24/7 physical harassment and I'm being targeted with directed energy weapons. He's approving it enough to be ashamed, when he meets me at the board meeting. And then the next thing I know, after many, many years, it's being used on him.
Yeah, he was creeped out by stuff that he thought was being used. That was we talked about a lot of stuff when I was with him, uh, but I don't. There was something that concerned him, but I don't know what it was. It may have been that actually, but that was years ago. That was
I
back when I was
never, I
doing more
never read
stuff.
about it. I just read about it. His wife talked about it after he died.
Yeah,
Apparently, they spent the last couple of years traveling the country trying to find doctors who could help.
you're right.
Um, the other thing I wanted to tell you was we had Alistair Crook come to our builder, so we did our first class of Solari Builders, which is
Hmm.
a curriculum, the Solari curriculum for 18 to 35, and we do these courses. It was very successful, and we're very pleased. We're re-engineering and about to take applications in a month or two for the new Solari Builders. So if you're interested, go sign up at the Solari Builders page on Solari. But anyway, so we were very enthusiastic, and we had two events. The last one was Milan. So Alistair Crook came and spoke. And his first presentation, he did several presentations, but the first one was so absolutely remarkable. I said, we've got to put this up for the subscribers. And what I had said to Alistair was, pretend for a second that you could go back and be 25 again. What are all the things you learned working in US in British intelligence and diplomacy that you wish you'd known when you were 25? That's what I want you to teach the builders.
Mm.
And so he gave this presentation about listening to others and how to listen. And it's one of the most remarkable presentations I've ever heard in my life. It's up on Solari, and you
Oh,
have to listen to it. You have to have Masako listen to it. She'll love it.
okay. I'll watch it
And
tomorrow. Yeah.
and it was like it's the deepest meaning of what you learn. Because most of his work is in British intelligence, was in the middle of serious conflicts. Middle East, Ireland, war, people dying, people being killed. When you listen to his whole history, it's a miracle he's alive. I think he has like 50 angels guarding him or something. But but he's talking about having spatial consciousness. And what's very interesting about his presentation, he's talking about how they sort of destroyed spatial consciousness in the West, and we don't have it, and you find it in the Middle East or the East. And what he's talking about is the same thing I talk about when I talk about integrating living equity and financial equity and understanding, the life in your place and the economics of your place. He's talking about an integrated whole consciousness of all life. And it's really
Oh, yeah.
remarkable.
Actually,
Yeah.
that's something I think about often. In fact, I just wrote a little group email to Weinstein and some others on a private chat about something similar. When I go for those long walks, that stuff, like you can see that life is it's bigger than little
Well, here's the
species and
thing.
things, right?
So, how I said, you know, so the old is dying and the new is being born. And there's this tension between those who would do tyranny and
Mm,
those of us who want a different pathway. The first step to that pathway is this consciousness that
mm.
that the universe is alive and that we're here by divine authority and the universe is intelligent.
That's a
And
Japanese way of looking at it. Yeah.
exactly. And we need to have a whole life integrated perspective.
Mm,
We need that consciousness if we're going to build forward. And that's the opposite. People who have that consciousness are impossible to control. And,
right.
and not because they're trying to be out of control, but because they're way too intelligent. They can only function in a meritocracy. They can't function in. So I just have to tell you my favorite quote of the year. I was in a group the other day, and this lovely young woman who was just there because she was related to somebody, she was there picking up dad. One of the participants said, the young people hate AI. And she raised her head and she said, we don't hate AI. We hate the tech bros. And the way she said it was, I thought, do you have any idea if you're the tech bros, the energy that is going to come towards you over the next 24 months? That hatred, that
Mm,
many people who absolutely hate you. Whoa. There's not a control grid in the world that can control that.
mm. And
Yeah.
just imagine they're going to war with other people that can make drones and other people that can target it just as well as they can, right? It's quite serious. One thing you mentioned Washington, how so much targeting happens in there. I would not. I just had this idea, and whenever there's a certain feeling when you get some ideas, you just kind of sense it's going to come true. I have a feeling that they're going to move the capital from Washington. I don't know
It
where.
was supposed to be in Philadelphia. Hamilton made a
Originally, it
trade.
was. Originally,
Yeah,
yeah.
Hamilton made a trade. He agreed to move it to Washington to get some of what he wanted. So
Yeah.
that was a
But
big trade.
I wouldn't doubt it if they move it though to maybe even Florida. I would not doubt that. I don't know where they'll put it, but I think that they'll move it because there's there's reasons why you would do that. But yeah, I wouldn't
So
be surprised.
in the old days we used to say it was scheduled to go to Atlanta or Denver.
Hmm.
So not I mean, Kushner and Alex Karp and Palantir are all going to Miami, but I don't see it in Miami. So
Hmm. Yeah. And anyway, that's a good subject for another time. But I would not be surprised if it were to go to Florida. I wouldn't be
really,
surprised. Yeah.
I don't see now where would they put it in Florida?
I don't know. Hmm. I don't know. I haven't worked. It's just I don't know. I need to formulate my thoughts better on it.
If you had to
But
guess,
I just, yeah.
take a
Hmm.
guess where in Florida.
Mar-a-Lago. Yeah. Yeah.
What about the some of the
No,
tech?
you won't. You would never put it in Palm Beach. You would never put it in Palm Beach.
Hmm.
What about
I don't know, but yeah.
what
Go
about
ahead.
some of these? Sorry, I'm not going to make off. What about some of these tech brothers that have moved to? Was it Argentina or El Salvador? Isn't Peter Thiel?
It's Argentina. It's
Uruguay
Argentina.
Uruguay and Argentina. Keep in mind, Argentina, a lot of the Zionists and Nazis moved there together after World War II. And Buenos Aires is like the third biggest Jewish city in the world. You know,
So yeah, so here was the question I wanted to ask. I I don't think if I was the US military that I would want to get too aggressive in the Iran war until I had had the basic uh, infrastructure, both tech, business, files, people that I needed in Israel move to Argentina or move to Ukraine or move to wherever you're going to move them, US, because the danger is I'm going to take hits on Israel that's going to make life extremely difficult, if not destroy Israel. So before I do anything that would cause the Iranians to basically destroy Israel, I want to make sure I have everything. I have a backup of everything elsewhere, and I'm ready to operate without Tel Aviv. Wouldn't you?
they're doing that. I mean, they're moving
Right,
to Argentina, they're moving to Panama, they're moving
right,
to Thailand, and the places they're moving in Thailand are key, actually. They don't look like it, but they are. Koh Tao, Koh Samui, Koh Phangan. I spent more than 3 months in those places. And they're moving to Pai. That's also strategic. That's where a lot of Japanese were in World War II, and they were there because it's strategic. But Koh Phangan, Koh Tao, and Koh Samui, that's three islands. They're not strategic yet, but they will be in the future if they build a corridor across the Craw Isthmus. And I think they will. Al Johnson and I went to look at Craw Isthmus in 2014 because we thought eventually that they will build that corridor, which is an idea
right.
they've had for centuries to do that. But now with the Strait of Malacca, if Malacca does get closed, and I think it will actually, and I think Malacca will get closed, and that of course, then China is going to be desperate to open Craw Isthmus, right? And make that canal through Cambodia from the Mekong as well. But anyway, not to go into that, but I think that you will end up seeing Malacca closed at some point. But when it comes to the other components, there's so many places. I think you're going to end up seeing war where you're at. Actually, I would not be surprised to see targeting at Rotterdam and
Right.
also in Antwerp and at Danish Strait as well. Hmm.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you, there was a very interesting situation with a new food bill that passed in the New Hampshire legislature, and the governor vetoed it. And it was really so that a lot more meat could be grown and sold locally in New Hampshire. It's a great bill. And there was a real press to override the governor's veto because if you're worried about famine, and you and I are very worried about famine, this is
Hmm.
a great bill because they have the capacity to grow all the food they need in New Hampshire. They just need to be free to do it, right? I mean, it's the law that's stopping them from doing a lot of great, and of course, this can create good jobs and good profit for the local people. So it's one of those businesses that you can build locally that that can create the jobs and the food and everything we need. So the governor, so the question was, could you override the governor's veto? And a huge effort was made to do it, and it failed.
Hmm.
Now they learned a lot, so they'll come back next year. But here's an obvious situation where this is such a great idea. It's good for the economy. It's good for the people. It's a win, 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 win. But of course, the governor doesn't want to do it because then you can't control the food supply centrally, right? And so she's subject to whatever political pressures. One of the things that I learned from reading the description of the failure was too many people were lobbying their legislative representative without having created a relationship with them or knowing them. You know, we
Hmm.
haven't built the networks we need locally and at the state level to basically shift the levers of power. And I think if there's any message I would give everybody today, it's we have an incredible opportunity, but you have to get in there at your state and local level and at your financial level, because we're financing all of this. Our taxes are financing it.
Hmm.
Our 401ks and IRAs and brokerage accounts are financing the data centers. I
Hmm.
mean, we got to stop. We got to understand, oh, there's a war, there's an enemy, and they're friends. And we have to finance our friends and not finance our enemies. And we need to create the relationships with the other friends to organize and get something done. We have to exercise power.
You're
And
doing
and
that
that
now. You're doing long
right,
game stuff with the builders. You're doing long
right,
game. And that's the
right.
only
We're
way to look
doing
at this is long game.
right. So
Yep.
we're doing long game with the builders, we're doing long game with the subscribers, we're doing long game with the legislators, and that's what we're going to keep on doing. But
Mm.
and the more people who come and collaborate and join us, like you and Masako, I can't tell you how much I learned having you guys here in the Netherlands.
Oh,
It's
Misako and
like,
I, we talk about you all the time. We're like, we want to spend 6 months with you. Once we get Kenjiro House, we're actually going to have a little Catherine wing, because we're going to try to kidnap you away
oh,
from
I want to
Netherlands.
come and stay. Yeah, I
Yeah,
definitely want to
we
come
don't
and
want you to
stay.
come visit. We want you to come and like there you live.
It sounds so wonderful. It sounds so wonderful. Okay, well, Mike, you've been so quiet.
You know,
Mike's always like that. He's wise with that ways.
I know what
I've
my
noticed
role
that
is.
with all his interviews.
I
He's
know what
like that.
I know what my role is in all this. So it's I appreciate you two coming on and speaking to each other, but also allowing me to listen. And I've always claimed I'm not an expert. I'm not even a journalist. I was a telemarketer. My first job, asking open-ended questions. I'm really good
You're
at
doing
that.
the American thing, man.
I'm really good
That's
at
what I
that.
love. I mean, you're literally doing the American thing. Like, so I
So,
wasn't trained
okay,
to
so
do this.
Mike,
What does that got to do with it?
what do we need to tell the audience now? Bottom line, we've got 2 more minutes. What what because we are looking into a period that is so full of, it is impossible to predict. We do a lot of scenario design at Solari. It is impossible to predict what's going to happen, right? So you're looking at a period of great uncertainty, but also with it great opportunity. What do you think we need to tell our audience?
Well, I think you've provided solutions over the last, hour and 20 minutes because in my view, I think anything that we talk about, it's not going to change what happens at the very, very top level. But what you can do is control what you do in your house, in your neighborhood, in your local community.
Right.
People don't want to hear that, Catherine, because they want to go back to their lattes and their yoga mats, and they want life to go.
So I don't know if you've seen it. Michael's seen it. We have a thing called Coming Clean at Solari. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Oh, you got it. You got it. It's a PDF up on the website. Anybody can download it. You can share it. We have hard copies too if you want it. But it basically says if you want to get the enemy out of your head, out of your family, out of your home, out of your pocketbook, out of your body, it's a complete roadmap. It's like a buffet of all the things. So I liken the system to a tapeworm, and we have to detox the tapeworm out of our life,
Mm.
and it walks you through all the. You have a copy of Coming Clean, right, Michael?
I do. Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got a whole stack of your reports. I took
Right,
everything you had.
right. So any person can go to Solari, just put Coming Clean up in the search box, get Coming Clean. You can print it out, you can download it, and it will give you. I've been doing this since 2004. I'm still Coming Clean, and it will just give you a wealth, a buffet of things you can do. And the trick is it's a time game. Find one thing you can do to sort of detox the tapeworm, do that, and that will give you more energy. And you can take that energy and do the next thing, and that will give you more energy, and you'll take the next thing because you are being drained by the tapeworm. Okay. And the goal is to stop the tapeworm from draining you. And the more you stop the tapeworm from draining you, the weaker you make the tapeworm and the stronger you make you. And everybody's different. So you want to sequence how you do it in a way that's good for you. Because the goal is to make you stronger and the enemy weaker. And anyway,
So,
Coming Clean.
Solari
So
report. I can tell you one thing that people can do is start reading Solari report because it's actually incredibly intelligently written, but it's also done in a very classy format. It's easy to read. You know what I mean? It's really, It's incredible. I mean, it's important to read it actually, and
I will say this:
I'm not getting paid to say that at all.
when it comes to making our graphics, we have the greatest artist in the whole industry. Would
Yeah.
you agree?
Oh yeah. Look at the front cover of that. Yes. Yeah. Oh yeah. I met quite a few people on the Solari
Well, but
team.
Robert is the
Yep.
genius behind all of our
Yeah.
graphics. So
Yeah. He's very serious. Yeah.
yeah,
Yep. Yeah.
yeah.
I love. Yeah. I tell you what. I want to come back over there, but we're not going to be able to do it anytime soon because we're going to have baby bear soon.
So the one thing we have to do is you have to come back some year when the next time I'll come to Japan, but after that you have to come back in January because we have to go back to the horse show.
Oh yeah, that horse show was awesome with the Frisian horses. Oh, I got an old map from Stavoda now, and it's from 1597, I think.
Oh
Yeah,
wow.
I got that as part of my brainwashing process to try to get Masako to agree to name baby
So
Stavoda if it's
Mike,
a boy.
I live in Friesland, which is the location of the most beautiful horses in the world. They're the Frisian stallions,
They
the
are.
Frisian black horses. And so when Michael and Musaka were here, because it iced up and we got a great snow, they had the sled racing contest with the Frisian horses, and then they had the big Frisian stallion show in Leeuwarden, and it was amazing. So they got they got a serious horse experience, Frisian horse experience.
And they prance like this.
They do. They
So
do.
I asked the Dutch lady, why do they prance like that? She said, "Oh, we teach them so that they can get through the snow." And then she do it like this. Masako and I still joke because she was so funny. She's like, they go like this to get through the snow.
They do. They do. Okay, well, Michael, thank you so much for doing this. It was a pleasure seeing you again. And Mr. Yan, you tell that bride of yours I missed her, and I do miss her. So I
Kath,
wish her all the best. She is in our prayers all the time, and the baby too. I've got it on my
Thank you.
calendar. I've got it on the schedule, the day she is expecting. So,
We are so blessed.
Catherine, where can
And
people find you?
she,
Both. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Michael. Sorry.
for me, just
I'm
Substack, but
yeah. So
Catherine Solari report.
I'm the Solari Report at Solari.com. And we'd love to have you visit our site. We'd love to have you enjoy Coming Clean. That's free, available to the public. We have tons of public stuff, but we'd love to have you as a subscriber too. And Michael has a Substack, and he'd love to have you as a subscriber. And we're in cahoots. We learn a lot from each other, and I will tell you,
Yeah,
learn a lot from Michael.
it's an adventure.
It was really funny because remember Butler? It was so funny because Butler happened, the Butler event in
Right?
Pennsylvania, and John Titus, who's my co-host on Money and Markets, he and I agreed that we wouldn't discuss it. We meet on Tuesday to prep for recording on Wednesday,
Mhm.
and I said, John, I'll figure out what happened and why, and come to the meeting, and you figure out what happened and why, and come to the meeting, and we'll compare notes. So, so we got to the Tuesday, and I said, we both said that it was 99.9% chance that it was total theater. There had been no real assassination. But
Hmm.
what was interesting is our reasons were totally different. He had like 5 to 10 reasons. I had five. They're totally different. Totally different. And then, so we go out with that on Wednesday, and then I go out and look around at everybody else. And it's like Michael Yon and John and Catherine. And it's like we're out here alone. And I thought, ah, thank God for Michael Yon.
It was clearly fake. Yeah, yeah,
But it was
yeah,
amazing how many people
yeah.
went along.
And still
Yeah.
do, still
Yeah.
do. Yeah,
I don't know. Whenever Trump talks about it, everybody kind of looks at their shoes and you can tell they know. They
we're
know.
supposed to believe it. And one time when I was up near Mount Everest, I was with these Sherpas, right? And I ask, is the abominable snowman is the Yeti real, right? And one of them said, "We're supposed to believe it." He actually said that. He actually said that we're supposed to believe it.
What is it? What is it they say in Japan? They have the
Oh, is there an abominable snowman here too?
No, 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 no. The way they talk about reality and official reality in Japan.
Mm, you're right. I've forgotten the word. I need to ask Misako.
Ask
Yeah,
Masaka.
yeah, yeah.
That's Richard Werner taught me that. It's a brilliant way. They have a brilliant way of managing the